Well, welcome everybody. I'm so excited to have all of you here. We've been working hard to get to this day for the annual conference, and it's a blessing to have our board members here to kick off the first kind of official event of the week for us. So thank you so much for your participation. I'd like to start off by asking anyone who's a sponsor of the conference to stand up, please. We got our sponsors in the room, please. Please, round of applause. That's critically important to me because ultimately that is part of leadership. That is part of what it takes to make GFA the best forestry association in the country. And without your contributions, we can't get there. And I know a lot of you contribute in different ways, but I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you've done through your efforts and through your company's efforts to support this annual conference. One of the most exciting things that we have going on this weekend is this, rolling out our new logo. So we've invested in this because it's probably been about 20 years since we really took a hard look at what our logo was. And Lee, would you stand up and show everybody your shirt? That's the one that everybody seems to love. And we couldn't just go back to that one, right? So we had to come up with something new and improved, although it's hard to improve on that one. Yeah, Bob likes that one, I know. But it was time for us to freshen things up a little bit. And so we worked very closely with Matt Hesed and Howard Lawley at HL Strategies, and they worked with a company called Brandshake out of Atlanta to come up with our new logo and our new tagline. This is important for us because we are more, as Dr. Green mentioned, we're more than just an industry that's about ourselves. We connect to every single Georgian in the state. We're responsible for a huge part of the sustainability of the state. And we want to have a logo and a brand that allows us to reach out to more people. But most importantly to me, if you remember how hard it was for me to get you guys in your seats because everybody's so excited to see each other, what I've told you every time I have to get up here and interrupt your conversations, we're a community. We're together. We're all connected through university. We may have gone to the university together. We may work together. We may deal with it, buy and sell from each other. We may be neighbors and landowners, but we're all connected one way or another. And that's what this does for us internally. This isn't just about connecting with 10 million Georgians. This is a lot about connecting internally within our community. We know there's a lot of landowners out there. There's still a few folks in industry who aren't part of our community in this way, in GFA's way. And we want to be able to invite them in to be part of that. And so that's a critical part of what we're trying to show here. And that's what we do when we talk about all the faces who we are, right? And so that's kind of there. But at the end of the day, our mission still stays exactly the same. It doesn't change in any way, and this logo helps represent some of that. Our vision stays the same, our 3-year vision of focusing in on advocacy, membership, management, and our foundation. The course we've set and the course that you've approved over the past year and a half still stays the same. And at the end of the day, it all points back to our core principles. This is what built forestry in this state. It's responsible for the successful forestry in a lot of the eastern United States. Private property rights, sensible taxes and regulation, and healthy markets. Without that, we're in a different place. And that's what really drives us into the future as well. So when we think about that, that the tagline of let's grow and that delta shape, that's cutting through all the things that stand in our way of the friction of an urban population, of politicians who can't seem to make up their mind as what they want, whatever it may be, of environmentalists who don't believe that we're actually sustainable, of European pellet buyers who don't want to look at our forests as sustainable. Whatever it may be, these are the things that Let's Grow is about. It's about growing our forest landowner base. It's about growing jobs. It's about expanding the opportunities that we have in forestry. It's about giving. It's about making sure that our foundation continues to grow, our PAC continues to grow, our membership continues to grow. Everything centers back on those core principles, and it all comes back to how do we grow? Because that's part of how we stay healthy as an association. It's part of how we stay healthy as an industry. And right now, we're very blessed to have Congressman Buddy Carter with us back in the back of the room, and he's going to talk to us a little bit later. But a lot of folks that we've talked to are still trying to get their head around what has changed in D.C. I mean, we all know that there's a massive election that kind of changed the paradigm of politics in some ways in this country. But one of the biggest changes we have is just the opportunity to finally grow. That pent-up investment that hasn't been able to happen because of air regulations, because of water regulations, because of labor regulations, because of trade. Those things that have kept business people from wanting to invest and grow their businesses. Hopefully that'll change. So this idea of let's grow is about that too as well. When we're advocating, when we're being champions for our industry, and we hopefully see those change or that weight come off of our shoulders, and we're in a place where the #1 forestry state in the nation, we should be the #1 opportunity for growth. And it all starts with the people in this room. It all starts with our own community, our own mills, our own employees. Let's grow them. Our own landowner base as well, logging, supply chain, all those things. So let's grow in our logo is about creating that sense of community, identifying those opportunities to grow at every level, and putting our shoulder into it. And that's why your sponsorship, your commitment to GFA is so critical, because it takes effort. You know, nothing in this world that's worth anything comes to us for free. We all know that we have to work hard for things. And that's what this, for us, captures a lot of that. Hopefully I did that right, Matt. We've been practicing. So that's a good lead in here for what our next components are. I just have to remind you, this is my duty, right? There's 3 things I've asked of you as board members. Number 1, help us recruit new members. If you're buying timber, if you're selling timber, if you're using the supply chain, whatever it may be, if you're in manufacturing, if you depend on bankers, if you depend on engineers, if you depend on lawyers, if their success depends on your success, they need to be members of GFA. So please recruit them. Second 2 elements are all about, ultimately, it's about ways that we can support us financially, and that's supporting the PAC and supporting the foundation. The foundation has lots more opportunities for engagement, but really what it comes down to, without the resources, we can't do what we want to do. So those are the 3 asks that we have of you, and that kind of sets the stage for some of the other things we want to talk about today. And this is a little bit more of just a rundown on where we're at and kind of where we're heading. But as you know, one of our 4 core principles, or one of our 4 core mission areas is advocacy. Let me get to my slide here. And just an update on where we're at. The Forest Land Protection Act, of course, legislation, House Bill 51, House Resolution 51, House Bill 85. Both of those deal with timberland taxes. This is something that we put the brakes on during the legislative session. You've heard me talk about this, I guess, through emails and through video and other areas. But we got the ball further down the field than we ever have. But this is very important because it continues to address the fact that in Georgia we're not competitive when it comes to timberland taxes compared to the rest of the Southeast, compared to the rest of the wood basket in the Southeast. And you'll see a slide where we'll talk about that tomorrow. But it also addresses the fact that there's some gaps. The current legislation that's out there that addresses Forest Land Protection Act isn't necessarily working the way it was intended to work. So there's pressure to make sure that we fix that. Anytime we're tinkering with these types of things, we want to make sure we get it right. And so that's why we've turned around and we've asked the University of Georgia, thank you, Dr. Green, Warnell School, to help us drill down to what kind of changes, what kind of impacts would the changes make. Because one of the most important things we have to do through this process is anytime we tinker with taxes, we're getting into people's pocket. We need to tell them and be honest and upfront to let them know what that looks like. Today, there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's nothing more that makes people more nervous than when you're messing with their pocketbook. And so we want to be upfront, honest with them, and let them know what that actually looks like. We're joined today by Senator Tyler Harper, who's been tracking this issue very closely for us, so thank you, Senator Harper, as well as Senator Ellis Black, who's been also bird dogging this issue a good bit too for us as well, so thank you so much for being there. And of course, one of our key champions in this space is former chairman of Ways and Means, Richard Royal. So Richard, thank you so much for the work that you've done for us too as well. I would like to say I could answer any questions related to this legislation and impacts and timberland taxes, but really that's what our expert is for in Richard Royal. The Water Buffer Study Committee has finally been formed and is our opportunity to make sure that we protect those our rights, riparian rights in the buffers and the SMZs that we operate within. That's very critical for us. So hopefully we'll continue to work down that space. And can I, Dale, do you know if I can mention who? Okay, good. And Dr. Dale Green will be representing forestry on that committee. So we couldn't ask for better representation on that committee. So thank you so much, Dr. Green. And then I wanted to mention, as Buford mentioned already, we started making sure that on the radar screen of every legislator, that the fact that the Forestry Commission needed additional funding to address wildfires was a major issue for us. How did we do that? We did that with your help. When you contributed to the PAC, that gave us the opportunity to bring in legislators onto our turf. We didn't have to talk to them at a big fundraiser with 30 other or 40 other legislators. They came to GFA. They came to Jamestown, where we had an event for Democrats, and we talked to them how important this was. We got it on their radar screen. And that, we hope, was our way of supporting this effort. And we continued to talk about it throughout the legislative session. And that eventually led to what Buford had talked about, was a $10 million for equipment, as well as $3 million for aerial equipment. We did our homework before we did that, though. We tested and we pushed the commission, show us what that looks like, show us the age of the equipment, show us how this compares to other states. So we're not asking just simply because we're asked to ask, we're asking because it's a credible ask. And that also puts us in a better position to ask of that of other people. But we had two awesome champions in the legislature, and Chad, obviously you're always, Chad Nimmer, always helping us, but you made an awesome effort in this area, as well as Chuck Williams. So thank you so much for your effort in that space. The Forest PAC, we're currently at $40,000. We want to continue growing that, so thank you for all of those who've contributed to that. We're going to continue growing that because we want to be in a good position to be able to play in next year's statewide election races. That's heating up. You hear new names. It seems like every few weeks somebody jumps into the fray, but we want to be part of that, and that's where our PAC can help us make sure that we're in front of folks and they're listening. Other areas where we're at, forest resource teams, and Tom Byer is going to talk to you a little bit about that in the next session. Legislative tours, we're actually inviting our congressional staffers out of Washington, D.C. to come down and spend 2 days with us. That is led and sponsored by the University of Georgia and the Forestry Commission, but they will have some staffers down in Savannah to take them through mills, take them through forests, take them through the export facilities, and understand why Georgia's the #1 forestry state in the nation. And we're also very engaged in building relationships across multiple different areas. So where can you get involved? One of the most important areas is the PAC, as well as our forest resource teams. Along membership, we continue to hammer the message that we're protected, connected, and empowered. Very important for us that you know that. When you're talking to somebody about why they need to be a GFA member, this is why. They're protected, they're connected, and they're empowered. 3 simple words. But that's the value that GFA is trying to bring back to you. We're trying to make sure that we create value for anybody who owns soil, who owns dirt, or owns steel in this state. We want to create competitive advantage so that you're more competitive here than you will be anywhere else in the world, but at least anywhere else within the United States. So that's one of our key goals. Along that, as I mentioned, we have strong, on the protected front, we have strong representation with Richard Royal at the Capitol, Tom Byer giving us more depth there too as well, our Government Affairs Director. On the connected front, we had the Timber Theft Forum here not too long ago. We're also working on a lot of regional visits with our members. And of course, this event, the annual conference, one of the most important events for us to be able to connect to and talk to our members. And then empowered. We want to create champions, and I think we are doing that every day through our marketing communications efforts, as well as through our outward engagement. Our member programs, Forest Kids continues to grow. And then we've offered up to every Forestry Club student at the University of Georgia and ABAC free memberships within GFA. But one of the most important reasons we want to do that, we want them to know early on when they're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, 22, about those core principles, about private property rights, about healthy markets, about sensible taxes and regulations. Because those are the things that for the rest of their career, they're going to have to deal with one way or another. And when they know that GFA is their resource to help them deal with those issues, then that is power to our association and we're creating the next generation of leaders who one day will be sitting in your chairs out there in this audience. So that's very important for us. We have postponed our 2017 membership drive. We're going to push that to 18 because we want to be very purposeful as to how we do that, and we want to be able to reach those unengaged landowners. I know that's always been the on the wish list for a lot of folks. We're going to take our time to figure out how to do that right. We might get some help from some of our national associations. We've been talking to them about that, about how we can pay for some expertise to help us understand how to do that. Once again, on the management front, a new GFA brand. You understand how important, as I explained before, this is to us. A new tagline of Let's Grow. Megan, if you would stand up for a moment. We've hired Megan Frame, who came to us from the Georgia Department of Agriculture. Megan was with the Department of Agriculture, but she was also a graduate of Ole Miss. She did 2 internships with both of the U.S. senators from Mississippi, as well as the Republican National Committee. So she's had some experience both on the advocacy side and policy, as well as with communications, where she did a lot of work with the Georgia Growing Program. So welcome, Megan. And then some of the biggest news we have is the transition. We have been growing and growing and growing in our programs, and through a lot of discussion with Matt and Howard, we'll be transitioning out from the contractor relationship that we have with them later this year. They've done awesome work to create a more competitive, a more attractive, and different GFA to differentiate us from every other state association out there. So we're very, very thankful for your work, Matt, in that. And they'll continue to hopefully help us on a project-by-project basis where we can. But we've gotten to the point where a contractor with limited time that they can give us was going to be limited to get us to where we wanted to go as we grew. And so that was our discussion. And a big part of that was bringing in an in-house director that can be solely dedicated to GFA. So it was, I think, a mutual decision in how we needed to grow into the future. And once again, thank you, Matt and Howard, for everything you've done for us in that space. And we look forward to continue working with you on a project-by-project basis. So that's kind of where we're going, and hopefully we'll have a new website that'll roll out later this year. Within the management as well, ASG has taken over management of our annual conference. This annual conference this year in particular was a big challenge for us in a lot of different ways, because almost all of us are new to it, with the exception, I think, of Matt. Everyone that's kind of in new roles. So that's me, that's Mary Lou, that's Michelle, that's even our annual conference committee in different ways. And so we've all stepped up to the plate in different ways to make the conference, I think, hopefully very successful later. We'll see that later this week. Part of what we've done with Mary Lou, has been refocus her role. So she's providing more support functions for special events, for membership, and for financial, and giving her a little bit more flexibility to do those. And then for Michelle Dunham, we've elevated her role to office manager to make sure that everything functionally for us runs well, and she's also in charge of the silent auction this weekend too as well. But we've been very focused on making sure that we onboard all of our employees. We have 3 new full-time employees and 2 new interns. All of those people represent you, one way or another. We want to make sure they do that well. So we spend a lot of time going around the state to be able to talk to different folks. So you see 2 pictures there where we visited with Graphic Packaging and Georgia Biomass, but we've also been hosted by Interstate Paper, Rayonier, Dr. Johnny Bembry, Interfor. We have planned visits to Rayonier Advanced Materials, International Paper. We went up to DC and we visited with NAFO, FRA, SAF, AFMPA, SFI, a variety of different folks. So very, very important that these 3 new folks that we have on board understand who the players are, understand what the messaging is, and most importantly, when they're out there in any venue, whether that's electronic communications or underneath a gold dome, that they know how to represent the industry in the state. And that includes landowners, that includes loggers, that includes manufacturers, that includes truck drivers. They understand how to speak with your voice. And so that's been the purpose of a lot of these visits. We have a lot more to do, but that's been kind of how we've done. We've approached some of that. You can see some of the pictures here from our visits to AFMPA, Rayonier. We went to the National Building Museum to see the CLT, cross-laminated timber exhibit there in DC. So this is part of us growing a team that can serve you better. Our interns this year have been a strong addition to us. Jake Parker is our 2017 Forest Economics and Policy intern. He's doing a forestry, kind of economic realities, a forestry report, working very closely with Bob Isler at Warnell, as well as a variety of other folks. And then he's also working on a cross-laminated timber benefits handbook. He was a UGA Ag Fellow last year in Washington, D.C. So, and he's going in to get his master's next year at the University at Warnell. So a great team player, energetic, quiet, puts his head down and does a lot of good work. So make sure you thank him later this week as you see him around. And Caroline Langdale is our 2017 communications intern. She's a sophomore at ABAC. And we've been so impressed with her skills and her ability to just cut through all the noise out there. When you think about communications, everybody's trying to say something. And her ability to boil it down to what matters quickly has been really impressive. And so we had another very solid intern in Caroline. She's been working on summarizing where we've been over the past 18 months, 24 months, or 20 months as we've changed our messaging. 2 years ago, you wouldn't have heard that we were the #1 forestry state in the nation. We weren't pushing that hard out in front of folks. Protected, connected, and empowered is also a new message that's changed. Our brand and logo now and tagline have changed, all those things. So she's kind of doing a snapshot of where we're at, and then she's doing some benchmarking to look at where other national groups around the country are doing. She spent 2 days this week, or 3 days, in Washington, D.C., under the wing of Secretary Perdue, understanding how the U.S. Forest Service does that. So just an incredible opportunity for her and Jake as interns to have an accelerated opportunity to really learn the types of things that they can't get very easily other places. And so we're excited about what we can do for those interns, and we're more excited about where they'll be in 5 and 10 years when they're contributing back to GFA in even bigger ways. Another change we've had is we switched over our bank from BB&T to State Bank. This was primarily designed to make us more efficient. We were still cutting paper checks. We needed to go to electronic payments. So State Bank has had the most robust platform of the different banks we looked at to be able to do that. We've been very pleased with their support. And then on the legal side, James Bates, Will Thompson, you out there? Would you mind standing up, please? And just give him a round of applause, please. Thank you, Will. James Bates is really, we have ramped up, and this might be the corporate Andre speaking, but we've really ramped up what we've asked James Bates to do for us this year. They're looking at contracts left and right. The foundation is way more active. We've got stuff that we need them to think about that helps us get us to 10 years from now. And that's a challenge for anyone, but we want to make sure that from the legal perspective, we get it right. So thank you so much, Will, for you and your team's help with that. On the foundation side, we have 5 new trustees that are committed. These are outside trustees that then include me and Ember. So far, we have $3.5 million, so that's been committed to the foundation over the next 5 years. We're going to grow that. That's a conservative number right now. We're on communications. We're working with various contractors, but we're developing a new brand, new messaging to be able to make sure that we can connect to 10 million Georgians with our message. The Center for Forest Policy Studies is working on cross-laminated timber, ad valorem taxes, and trucking liability. Trucking liability is a big one that a lot of people are asking and want to know about. So thank you for those of you that are supporting that study. Very important for us. Center for Forest Education, we're working really closely with Trees Atlanta and the Chattahoochee Nature Center. And thank you, Jamestown, for all your support, and Weyerhaeuser for your support of those projects. That's how we connect to folks. It's amazing. We had a group of folks that went up to visit Jamestown earlier this year. That's in downtown Atlanta, right off of Ponce de Leon. And 2 of them came out of that and said, we want to go to Warnell to get a forestry degree. So when you're talking to kids from inner city Atlanta who have never stepped foot in a forest, and you can go talk to them about what you do, and they come out so excited that that's the career they've chosen, we're doing something right. And so and that's the 2 that we got, locked in. There's probably everybody else is affected one way or another. So thank you for your support to do that, because I think we're going to do more of that, and that's exactly what we need to be doing. And then we've got our Center for Forest Leadership, and we'll launch that in 2018. I really thought that this was going to be the first thing we'd be doing, but the fact of the matter is that our industry said we want forest policies today. We really wanted it 3 years ago, so we could solve some of these challenges today that we're dealing with. But that's where we've put our energy. And then we've got the forest education, which we know is always a pressing opportunity, but a big one for us that we need to have too as well. There's more that we'll announce and further and the next meeting as well as tomorrow. But this is kind of a quick snapshot. And then the last one, you guys can help us. All of you that travel internationally, that are traveling domestically, when you put in your SkyMiles profile, that ID number there, every time you travel, you get your miles just like you normally would, but we get miles too as well. That we can double dip. And that's your way to give GFA the opportunity to travel around this country so that our folks can be engaged and learn when we need to go to DC, when we need to go to a conference somewhere, when we need to go meet somebody that can maybe be a donor, when we need to tackle the Wells Fargos of the world that say, don't print, don't use paper. Those are the types of things that this helps us do. So please, this is an easy one. Just stick it in your SkyMiles profile and we're ready to roll.